All right, I'm back again here. Going to do another uh, tutorial on move to compare instructions. This one right here is going to be a little bit longer, so just hang in there. But it's going to be a little more detail, and we're going to go through like another scenario of how to do sequencing with move instructions and compare instructions. So on the short one, I had individual inputs, input 1, 2, 3, and so on, moving numbers in to a sequence, which could be different conditions. But this one here, I want to just show you how to do this right here with a single input and basically cycle through every time, let's just say, a push button is pushed. You can make it go to another part of the cycle. This right here can be done like in a jog mode on a machine or whatnot. So I've seen this right here before a few times. But there are certain things, if you use just a move instruction in a compare instruction, there's certain things you have to do in order to get it to work properly. Later on we'll learn other instructions that makes it a lot easier. But let's get started. So I'm going to go ahead, and this right here, I've got a new project already up. The only thing I got to do is add my modules in. I guess I forgot to do that. Put that in. Inputs 1, 2, 2, 1, 16. So we have slot 3. And then I got to change that to 50 milliseconds. I should already have this done, but I actually forgot when I was creating my new project that I have to add this in. We'll get it done very quickly and move right along. So outputs 1, 2, 2, 1, 16. This should be slot 4. Okay. 50 milliseconds. Okay. Here we've got a blank program. I haven't got any logic at all, but I want to go ahead and download this in so we can do everything online and test it as we go. So I'm going to go communications, who active. I'm going to go select my controller, select download. And just make sure when you do this right here that you don't have an empty rung. If you have an empty rung there that's red, it won't let you download it. Come back with an error. It'll say canceling. It'll be downloading, and then finally it'll say canceling download, and it'll all be because that rung that's sitting there open with nothing in it. So if you open up your main, there's a rung there, but you want to go ahead and download, just go ahead and delete that rung out and then download it, and then you can see here remote run. So we are online with the processor. So I want to go ahead and start. I want to go ahead and put a rung in, and just like in the other video with compare instructions and whatnot, I'm going to have I'm going to say that input 1, or let's just say I'm just going to say input 1. Not going to even put in PB like I think I did in the last tutorial. And I'm going to create that. And this right here is going to be the condition I'm going to be monitoring for to cycle through. Okay, and now I want to put in a move instruction. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to move a 1 into, I want to go ahead and name this sequence again. Okay, again I want to go ahead and do this. I want to go ahead and toggle, and when I toggle I move a 1. So that's the first thing. Like I said, as you go, especially if you're online, you add the stuff in, just validate that it works, and so on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put in another rung, and as you see, it's going to get a little more complicated, but we should be able to get through it. I'm going to put in another XIC, and I'm going to put in, and that's going to be named the same thing. So I'm going to put in another move, and I'm going to go to the same destination, So here's the thing is that, okay, if I toggle this bit, it comes on in both places. So I just want it's you can see that it's picking the two, but it could be erratic of what it picks, you know, as far as being the last one in a list of. So this is not, it's not really reliable, let me say that, to have it working like this. But I'm going to go ahead and toggle that back off. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that I lock it out. I want to go ahead and copy this rung. I want to hit Control C and Control V. Okay, I like that there. So as you can see, I have the same input, but how can I, if I wanted to count, you know, go 1, 2, 3, you know, into the sequence, and here I have the same push button or the same input, the same condition, how can I do that? And so that's what I want to try to explain to you, and then show you how to you know, go through it automatically, and then how to go through it manually and whatnot. So anyways, one of the things we want to do is that in the first sequence, so this right here is moving a 1, so let's just say this 1 is going to represent this. Let me go ahead and put this in. Hopefully it'll make more sense. I want to put in an XIC. Okay. Then I'm going to put in, no, actually I'm going to delete that. That is not what I want to do. I want to put in a compare instruction. I want to put in an equals to. So when the sequence number, source A and source B, is equal to the same, then I'm going to turn on, and I'm just going to make this, I'm not going to have a hard IO. I'm just going to call this output 1. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say output, and then I want to change this to a dent, and then I want to go to output 0, because we actually start at 0, but this is just for us for this tutorial. So what I want you to know is that I'm just going to go up here and type a 0 back in so I can update that. So if I toggle this bit right here, it gives us the value out of the last one, even though I pushed the one, I made this one go true. I know it updates all the ones in every one of these, but it sent me this data. So that's the issue that we have, and that's what I have to get away from. Okay, so what we're going to do is, one thing is, we want to make sure, I want to go into this rung 0, and I want to say that the only time that I want this one to be able to make this move instruction go true is when I'm at a 0. So when the sequence, because what's below a 1 is 0. So at some point in time we're going to start at 0. We're nothing. We're in an idle state. So that's the only time that we'll be able to activate this. Okay. I also want to go ahead and I want to put a one-shot in, and I'm going to make a new tag, call it one-shot. I'm going to change this to a dent so I don't have to keep making them, but I want to start out with one-shot.0. Okay. Now this right here ain't everything we have to do, but this is a pretty good start. So I want to go ahead and accept this. Okay, I want to do this right here for the other. I'm going to do another equal to. I want to do another one-shot. And I want this one to be, it has to be at state number 1 or sequence position number 1 before this one can go true. And I'm going to copy this down and then change the last number to a 1 so it's different. Always make sure your one-shot are named differently. So I'm going to accept that, finalize it. I'm going to go ahead and edit this one. I'm going to go ahead and put a compare instruction in. I'm going to put in another one-shot. And this one says that unless we're in step 2, I don't want you to be able to push that button. Okay. Oop. Okay. Now, again, this is not everything we have to do to make this work properly. I'm going to set that back to a 0. But what I want you to see is that now I know that unless it's a 0, and right now sequence is at 0. See, sequence 0, 0. Every place you see the sequence tag, the value of that tag is 0. Okay? And when I press this, when I toggle this input on, you're going to see that these two equal, so it will allow this to go true, and I'm going to move a 1 into sequence. Okay? And then I have to, it's going to add a 1, or move it to a 1, then this is going to equal, it's going to go to a 2. So what I'm getting at is that this still ain't going to work properly. But my point is now I've got these things in front of there to where you know that it's moving, but it's still going to go to a 3. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle this, and it's going to go to sequence 3, but it's having to go through 1 and 2 before it gets to 3. So I know it's updating like I want, but you see, so I just have the input on. So what it's doing is that when this goes true, this was 0 and 0, it goes through, it automatically, from there, it moves to a 1, it goes straight through here, it moves to a 2, goes straight through here, and goes to a 3, automatically. But it had to go through all 3 rungs of logic is what it had to do, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and toggle that off. So one of the reasons why I put a one-shot in this is because one of the ways to get it to toggle to where it won't, basically it'll be like a stepping, is you have to hold this one-shot high until you've pushed the button one time, and then after that time, then every time after that it will work correctly. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I'm just going to show you this, is that if you put in a not equal to, and you put in 0 and sequence. Okay, so what I want you to see is that, let me go ahead and go to 0. Okay, so I put it back down to 0. And let me see, let me just make sure. Yep, okay. Just want to make sure I was doing this right. I've done this earlier just to validate that I had everything where I needed it to be. But what this should do is get everything rolling, and we want to go ahead and do this for these other ones. And what this should do is hold that one shot high, that when I press the button the first time, that the one shot is high. And remember, if the one shot's already high, if this input goes high, but I've already got something else making the one shot high, it will not allow this to pass through, right? So that's what we got going on here. And so basically we're basically tricking it, and basically we're just toggling the input to where it's not available to make the run go true, because we're holding the one shot high. So this is one way of getting this done with just these simple instructions. There's other ways of doing it, but I'm trying to use just move instructions and compare instructions in order to move through a sequence. Okay, so let me go ahead and put this down to 0. Okay, so it's probably going to go like this right here until I get all the logic written, because there's some other things that we have to put in. Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, so it's going to start there at a 1. I'm going to go ahead and toggle, and I'm going to hit Control T. You see it goes to a 2. I hit Control T to make it go back off. Control T again, it goes to 3. Control T back off. And see, now it won't go any further because I don't have any other numbers. So what we want to do is that when it gets to a 3, is that we want to actually make it start back over. So once we get to a 3, we don't want it to get stuck. So what we'd rather do is that we'd rather say, I guess I should have just copied that. Anyway, go ahead and put it in like this. If it's equal to, go ahead and put in this. Not equal to, like I said, I should have just copied and pasted it. Anyways. So we still want input 1. We want this right here to be when it gets to 3. And when sequence gets to 3, this will be 3 as well. Like that. This will be one shot dot 3. And this right here will go back to 0. And that's going to be sequence. Okay. Okay. So now if we toggle, okay, so it goes back to 0. So now if I toggle, it should go to 1, toggle off, toggle back on, it should go to 2, toggle off, toggle back on, it goes to 3, toggle off, toggle back on, it should go to 0. Right? So that there is how we would get it to step through the process manually. So let's just see this here. If I go down to here, I'm just going to go ahead and if I Control C, V, V, okay, so I want to get at least, so if it's number 2, if it's number 3, then I want to output 1, let's output 2, so I'm going to go ahead and finalize that. Okay, so now what I want to do is go, let's see if I can, okay, so if I Control T, so cycle 1 goes up to 1, you can see output 0 comes on because this is equal, so these here don't equal each other. So if I come back up to here and toggle again, toggle back off, I go to number 2. If I toggle again, toggle back off, goes to a 2. Toggle again. Should just keep on. Yep. 1. Output 2. Okay, that should be in 0 mode. That should be the idle mode. There's output 0. Output 1. Output 2. As you can see, as the numbers change in the compare instructions, you can see that it will turn on the output. Okay. Oh, I hit the wrong thing. Keep wanting to hit Control V. I don't know why, instead of Control T. Anyways, but that there is how we get through this sequence is, and it just, as long as we're just toggling the bit, this manual bit basically, because we're having to push a push button. I mean, it could be a photo eye, it could be, you know, anything, but it's making it go through a series or a sequence. Okay. So now let's just say if we wanted to make this thing run automatically, then what I would do is I would put in a pulse timer, and I would put in a XIO. I'd put in a timer, and I would call this timer so I'm going to call it pulse timer 1. I'm going to set it for 1 second. That's 1,000 milliseconds. I'm going to put the timer or the pulse one timer.dn bit here. And all that's going to do is you can't even see the done bit going done because it's so fast, but you can see the numbers here kind of right there. You've seen it flash one time, but you won't see it happen most of the time. But you know that it ain't just going up to, if it ain't going up just to 1,000 and stopping, then you know that it's this right here is getting reset. And through the scan times, sometimes you may see this go low, sometimes you might see that there light up, but it's very not reliable to just be like that. But we know that it's resetting it because it's continually counting, because if it wasn't resetting, it'd just go up to 1,000 and stop. Okay, so now what we want to do is, let's just say instead of pushing this push button, let's just go into here. Let's just put in a branch around. Like I said, this ain't the only way that you can set this up. Just right here is just something very simple to kind of pull in. Okay, so basically what we're going to do is, like, every 1 second we're going to go ahead and push this through. So when I push this in, it should go ahead and move that in. And let me keep going. Go down here to these rungs, do the same thing. Okay, go ahead and do those. Okay, then I've got one more here. Okay. So as you can see, it's automatically now, because I'm going around the input. So you can see that it's automatically updating this right here every 1 second. You can see the number change, and as it equals to, it is changing the output. Okay. So now let's also say this right here. If, let's just say if we don't want to use this in automatic, we want to be able to turn it off and on automatic. So there's two ways of doing it. Well, there's more than two ways, but just typically, just right off the top of my head, there's two ways of interrupting this pulse timer one done. It's either by coming in here and putting, I'll show you this way. Let's just say this right here is, or let's say selector switch auto. Okay, so if I was to put this in there, that would interrupt it right here. So if I interrupt it here, it interrupts it everywhere. Okay, because this right here never goes through. Now that's kind of dirty. I would rather go ahead and put it in every rung, because you don't know where it's going to stop at. Okay, or you could have taken and placed that same instruction here, because this one right here is what controls the pulse timer. So if the pulse timer, if you turn this off, then guess what? The pulse timer can never go done. So that means this right here, you could just do it in one spot. And this right here, I don't really like doing it in just that spot. I'd rather do it in each one. I don't know. I just feel like that would be better. But either way, this right here does the same thing. You put it here, timer cannot even, run, and therefore it's going to stay where it was at. Okay. So let's just say we go ahead and toggle that bit back on. Then it's going to go ahead and start running again, and the outputs are going to start moving. Okay, if I toggle it back off, then the output should stop. Toggle it back on, they're going to come back on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Okay, so it's off. You can see right now it's in sequence 3. So now we're going to say that, okay, we just stopped it right in the middle of something. So let's just say we stopped it, but we want to go ahead and re-zero it. So now, how do we re-zero that? So what I would do is, let's just put another rung here. And it don't matter if you put your rung here at the bottom of the page or wherever for what we're doing here. So I'm just going to put in a XIC, make a new tag, say reset PB. It's a bool data type, controller scope. I'm going to hit create. Now what I want to do is that there's a couple different ways of doing this. You can either, I'll go here, either move a 0 in, or you can do a clear. Or we could even take, if we didn't like what we're doing there, we could even bring around here and just use this same rung and just bring in another condition of when we reset to 0. All right, so it's kind of irrelevant. So let's just let me go ahead and cancel what I'm doing there. So let's just say if we did go down here where we're already moving a 0 here. Let's just say we want another reason why we're going to put a 0 in. So we can just go in there and add a branch level. And we could put in our XIC. Already put in a reset PB tag, so let me go get that. Okay, and then we got a one shot, and it should be fine to use the same one. Okay, so now let me go and let me toggle this bit. Okay, so it moved a 0 in, and that's fine. So let's go ahead and do a toggle this one. Goes to 1, 2, 3. So it goes to 3, but it won't go no further. So now we need to find out why that is. Okay, because it's because I left the reset button toggled on. So it was holding it from resetting. And that's another reason why you could have it in its own rung instead of doing it like that. Well, it still would have held it at 0, so that wouldn't have mattered. So let me toggle again. Goes to 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2. Okay, so it's at sequence 2. Let's go down here to the reset. Okay, so now you see what's going on there is because the one shot's already high and we're in this, and that it don't work. So what that tells me is that we're going to have to put in another rung, or we're going to have to branch around the one shot, because this one shot it's only going to be, if it's in a sequence 3, is the only time it's going to be able to go through the one shot. So let's go ahead and do this right here. Let's go ahead and let's just so we can try to use this same branch. See if we can go around the one shot. Let's see how this works out for us. And like I said, the way that I done this earlier is I did my own a rung by itself just to make sure it's cleaner. I knew what I was going to get if I done it that way. So let me go ahead and toggle the reset button now. Toggle. Okay, toggle it back off. Go back to input 1, toggle. 2, 3, 0. 1, 2, 3, 0. Okay, so that seems to work. So let me toggle it back up to a number here. Let's say 1. Okay, make sure that it resets. Yep, it does. Let's toggle up to a value of 2. Make sure that it resets. Yep. And let's make sure that it toggles up to 3. And resets. Okay. So I want to always make sure that we untoggle that. Now normally that's going to be a momentary push button. so that shouldn't be an issue. But for this demonstration, just got to remember to untoggle that so that it can actually do its thing. So here we are going back through the motions. We're using the pulse timer now. So now we have a reset, so no matter where we're at in our cycle, if we need to do, let's just say if a machine was to get a jam and you had to stop the machine and clear the jam and you needed to reset it back to its first cycle, you could. You could even do it with a start button. So as soon as you push the start button, it automatically starts back. So anytime the machine was restarted. So you don't have to do a reset. You could do a start button. You can do multiple things to get it to a zero state. So it always starts out at the first part of the sequence on a machine or an application or a process. Okay, but as you can see, it's going all through. And in our class, what we'll be doing is doing all 16 pilot lights this way. Okay, and we can also do the same thing in reversing. All we got to do is move things in a reverse fashion. But I won't do that there until we get into math instructions, because it's a little simpler to move through this stuff when you just do some adds and some subtracts to move through the numbers. So that there will be the next videos. We'll be going over some math instructions to add to this. But anyways, you can see that we have a pulse timer here. We talked a little bit about that in class. This right here is being able to use compare instructions, move instructions, a little bit more about one-shots. And this is giving us a manual mode of just pushing a button to cycle to each stage of our process, and also an automatic where every 1 second we're going ahead and indexing to the next step. So as you can see, this is what we're doing. And if you have any questions with this, please let me know.